My child, before you read another word, before your thoughts move anywhere else, I want you to stop and simply be still. Because I chose this exact moment to speak directly to you, not to a crowd, not to a distant place, but here, right where you are sitting, right where your heart is carrying whatever it has been carrying today. You did not arrive here by chance. You did not stumble here without purpose. I arranged this moment before your morning began, before you knew what this day would bring. I had already set aside this time to speak into the deepest places inside you, the places that have grown tired, the places that have carried more than others around you have known. I know what those places feel like from the inside. I formed you. I know every hidden corner of who you are. And I tell you now with full authority, you are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not a small concern in a large and busy universe. You are seen completely, exactly as you are, right now, in this moment. Stay with me through every word I speak today, because what I have prepared for you is not empty comfort. It is not a passing warmth that fades before evening. What I speak carries weight that reaches beyond what your ears can hear, deeper than what your mind can immediately explain. Something real is entering you right now, and I need your full attention so it can go all the way in. I know you have been tired, not just in your body, but in the kind of tired that sleep does not easily solve, the kind that comes from carrying concern for a long time, from hoping and waiting, from asking questions that did not quickly find their answers, from smiling outwardly when inwardly your heart was asking me why things have taken this long. I heard every one of those questions, every quiet thought that rose in the night when the room was dark and still, and your mind would not stop moving. I was there, not distant, not watching from far away. I was sitting beside that moment with you, closer than your own breath, closer than the worry that tried to fill the silence. You did not cry without being seen. You did not carry silent fear without it reaching me. You did not lie awake wondering whether I still cared, whether your situation was too small, whether your need was somehow less important than the needs of others. I hear all of it, every version of it. Every night it arrived differently, and every single time it reached me fully. My love toward you does not grow smaller when seasons grow longer. My care does not weaken when your strength runs low. If anything, the moments when you feel most spent are the moments I draw nearest, because weakness was never meant to push me away. It was designed to draw you closer to the one who carries what you cannot carry alone. There is something I want to speak clearly to you today, something that fear has been trying to hide from your heart for longer than it deserved to stay hidden. And I say this not with a raised voice, but with the deep, calm certainty of one who holds all things. Whatever has been pressing against your peace, whatever has made your thoughts run ahead into places you did not want to go, whatever has felt stubborn and heavy and slow to lift, it does not have final authority over your life. It does not hold a permanent deed to your future. It entered a space it was never given ownership over, and its time is answerable to me. I do not speak in fear. I do not pace and wonder and search for solutions the way human hearts sometimes must. I speak and things respond. I say the word and creation listens. That is not pride, that is simply what I am. And what I am is fully present with you right now, not partially, not conditionally, fully. So when fear tells you that something is settled permanently against you, when a voice whispers that this heaviness is now simply who you are, when exhaustion tries to convince your heart that this is the ceiling of what your life can hold, I want my voice to be louder than all of that. Not louder in volume, but louder in truth. The truth is simple. I made you. I know you, and I have not finished with your story, not even close. I want to speak to the tiredness you have been carrying, not just the physical kind, but the emotional weight that has gathered over time, the kind that comes when a person has been strong for too long, when you have held things together on the outside while something inside quietly asked when rest was coming. You have been carrying more than most people around you knew. Some of what you carry has no visible weight. Others could not see it simply by looking at you. But invisible weight is still real weight. And I know the exact measure of everything you have lifted when no one was watching. There are moments when the simple act of beginning a new day required more from you than it should have. Moments when you moved through ordinary hours while something deeper inside you moved much more slowly. Moments when joy felt like a language you used to speak more easily. When lightness felt like something that belonged to an earlier version of your life. I am not here to tell you that all of that was imagined. It was real. Your tiredness is real. Your weight is real. But here is what is also real. Rest does not always mean absence of movement. Sometimes the deepest rest begins inside the spirit before it ever reaches the body. And that kind of rest is what I am releasing toward you right now, not as a distant promise, as a present reality entering you while you receive these words. Something is shifting in the foundation of how you are carrying things. Something is beginning to be lifted that you have been holding alone for far too long. I also want to speak to the fear that has been living close to you, because I know that many of the heaviest burdens are not about what has already happened. They are about what fear keeps saying might happen. Fear is a loud voice when the heart is already tired. It takes small uncertainties and builds large shadows. It takes one unanswered question and fills an entire room with imagined outcomes. I know the path your thoughts have traveled. I know where fear led you when certain sensations arose and your mind began asking what they meant. I know the silent calculations you ran, the quiet searching for reassurance, the moments when you wanted someone to simply tell you that everything was going to be all right,
and mean it so completely that your heart could finally stop bracing. I am telling you that now, not as a gentle wish, not as hopeful thinking, but as the one who holds your days and your tomorrows and every hour between them. It is going to be all right. Not because circumstances are guaranteed to look exactly as you hope, but because I am in the circumstances with you, and my presence changes what those circumstances can do to you. Fear has no authority over you that I have not already overruled. The shadows it builds are not real walls. They are images without substance. And when my light enters, they do not gradually fade. They simply have nowhere left to stand. You do not need to fight the fear away by force. You only need to let my presence become more real to you than the fear has been. That is already beginning to happen.
My child, I know there have been mornings when you woke, and the first thought that came was not peace. It was the returning weight of whatever you had been carrying, the reminder that the concern was still there, that nothing had resolved overnight, that today would require strength you were not sure you had fully stored. I saw those mornings. I was there in the moment before the weight returned. I was there in the space between sleep and full waking. And what I want you to understand is this. I was not watching passively. I was working in places you could not yet see. Because even while you rested, even while your awareness was still and your body was quiet, restoration was happening in the unseen places. Not because your circumstances were changing dramatically in the night, but because I do not stop working simply because awareness sleeps. My care continues through every dark hour, every quiet interval, every moment when you were not conscious of needing me. This is not a small truth. I need you to carry it deep into your understanding. You are not only held when you are awake and asking. You are held continuously, without interruption, without pause, without condition. Even when you are too tired to pray, even when your words have run out, even when all you could offer me was simply the act of closing your eyes and trusting that morning would come. Morning always came, because I made sure it did. For you specifically, this morning and every one before it. There are things being loosened inside you right now that have been tightly wound for a long time. Places where tension gathered so gradually that you stopped noticing how much you were holding. The way a person adjusts to carrying something heavy over time. The weight becomes normal. The tightness becomes familiar. And one day you realize you have forgotten what it felt like to move freely. I am reminding you today that freely is still available to you. It was never permanently taken. It was displaced for a season. But a season has an end, and what has been tightly wound is beginning now to release. Not because you forced it to, not because you finally said the right words or believed hard enough or held yourself together well enough, but because I decided that today is the day I speak into those places. And when I speak, what has been bound begins to loosen.
This is what my authority looks like in your everyday life. It does not always arrive with visible spectacle. Sometimes it arrives as a quieting, a slow releasing of something you had been gripping without realizing it. A moment when you notice that the thing which once occupied every corner of your thinking is somehow not as large as it was. That is me. That is my hand moving inside your experience, gently but completely, and it has already begun. Before this day is finished, you will notice something has shifted. Not everything at once, but something real, something that lets you take a fuller breath than you have taken in a while.
I want to speak now about the parts of your life where strength has felt interrupted, where energy has not matched what your heart wanted to do, where the gap between who you desire to be and what your body or your circumstances allowed felt discouraging. That gap is not a verdict. It is not a permanent measure of your ceiling. It is a temporary space that I am filling right now with something stronger than effort alone. Because the strength I provide does not come from a reserve that can be depleted. It flows from a source that does not run low. And what I release into you today is not a small portion rationed out carefully. It is given fully, without measure, without a limit attached. I know there are days when getting through ordinary responsibilities felt like a greater challenge than it should have, when simple tasks required more gathering of will than they used to, when you looked at others moving through their days with ease and quietly wondered what had shifted in you, why things that once came simply now required effort. Hear me in this. That season is turning. The interruption to your strength is not becoming your permanent state. What has been drawn low is being replenished from a source that does not depend on your circumstances improving first. The replenishing begins inside, in the hidden places, and it works outward from there. You will begin to notice, first in small ways, a moment where your energy carries further than you expected, a day where the weight feels lighter without a clear reason, a morning where the first thought is not the heavy one. These are not accidents. They are evidence that what I release inside is working its way toward the surface.
My child, I want to address something that many hearts carry quietly and rarely speak aloud. The fear that they have somehow caused their own difficulty. The thought that slips in during weak moments that if they had believed more, prayed more, done something differently, things would not have grown this heavy. I want to be very clear with you about this. The weight you have carried is not a punishment. It is not the result of insufficient faith or a measure of how much I value you. My love toward you is not a reward system. It does not increase when you perform well and decrease when you stumble. It is not dependent on anything you produce or maintain. You could not have simply believed harder and made this season disappear. There are things that come in life that are not about earning or deserving. They are about the journey itself, about what the journey requires, about what it reveals, about what it ultimately builds in places that cannot be built any other way. And I never leave you alone inside any of it. When you were at your lowest point in this season, when whatever you faced felt most pressing, I was not far. I was not disappointed. I was not calculating your failures. I was close, holding the space around you, ensuring that what pressed against you could not become more than what was ultimately workable in my hands. I set limits on what could reach you, even when it did not feel limited to you. I was standing at the boundary of it.
I want to speak to the relationships that have felt affected during this season, because when a person is carrying something heavy inside, it changes how they show up for the people they love. And sometimes guilt grows alongside the burden. Guilt for not being as present, for not having the patience or the lightness or the energy that felt available before. You have loved the people in your life as fully as you could within the limits of what you were carrying. That matters to me. Even imperfect love offered under difficult conditions is still love, and I see the care behind the effort, even when you felt like you were falling short. The people I placed in your life were not placed there by accident, and the connection between you is not as fragile as the hard seasons have sometimes made it feel. What is real holds. What is built on something lasting does not easily fall simply because a season pressed hard against it. But I also want you to receive this for yourself, and not only for others. You deserve the same grace you have extended outward. You deserve to be patient with yourself through this season, the same way you would want someone you love to be patient if the situation were reversed. Speak to yourself the way I speak to you, with steadiness, with kindness, without the heavy additions of unnecessary condemnation. You are growing through something that is genuinely difficult. That growth does not require self-punishment to be real. It only requires willingness, and you have shown that every single day you kept going. My child, I want to tell you something about how I see your future, because I know that one of the ways this season has pressed hardest is in the imagination of what lies ahead. When the present feels heavy, the future can begin to look narrow, as if whatever you are walking through now will simply continue and expand until it fills everything coming. I see your future differently. I see it more fully than fear can describe it. And what I see is not a narrowing, it is an opening. What I see ahead of you is not more of what has pressed against you. It is the other side of this season. And seasons, by their nature, end. I know that feels difficult to fully believe right now. I know that when something has lasted long enough, it begins to feel permanent. But feeling permanent and being permanent are entirely different things. I am not describing your future based on what things currently feel like. I am describing it from the position of one who already sees where this road leads, and I tell you with full certainty, it leads somewhere worth going. The things you have been building inside yourself during this hard time, the quieter kind of strength, the deeper kind of trust, the more honest kind of prayer, the more real kind of faith that has been stripped of its easier assumptions. These are not small things. They are the very things that make a person capable of carrying what comes next in a way that actually satisfies rather than overwhelms. You are being prepared, not punished, and what you are being prepared for is worth everything this season has cost. I want to speak now to every specific place where weariness has settled in your body and your mind, because I do not speak generally when I know the specific, and I know the specific. I know where you wake up carrying weight that did not fully lift through the night. I know the places inside your body that have spoken discomfort for longer than you wanted to keep explaining. I know the tiredness behind your eyes that a full night of sleep has not always been able to reach. I know the ache in the places where strain has gathered and sat and repeated its presence. I am not standing at a distance calling these things better from far away. I am speaking directly into these places, with the authority of the one who shaped every part of what you are made of, every system inside you, every layer, every hidden process, every place where something has been working harder than it should. All of it is known to me, and all of it is being addressed. Do not rush past this moment, searching for dramatic, immediate sensation. What I begin often starts in the quieter places, in the places where measuring is difficult, in the spaces between obvious feeling. But what begins quietly does not stay small. It builds, it expands, it works its way from the hidden into the visible. And one day soon you will look back at this moment and understand that something began here, something real, something that did not announce itself loudly at first, but which changed things completely. Stay with me. The best of what I am releasing today is still on its way into you.
I know that one of the things that has sometimes felt most difficult in this season is the feeling of being misunderstood, not necessarily abandoned by people, but simply not fully reached by them, because what you carry has been partly invisible, and invisible weight is hard for others to fully account for. They love you, many of them, but they see the version of you that moves through the visible world, the one that speaks and responds and shows up, and they do not always have access to the version that lies down at night, still carrying what the day could not resolve. You have sometimes been lonely inside your own experience, and loneliness inside difficulty is its own particular kind of hard. You were surrounded by people, but still somehow alone in the specific corner of what you were navigating. I want to reach you there, in that specific corner, the one others could not quite find. I have always been able to find it, and I want you to know that the loneliness you have felt there was never because I could not see it. It was because the depth of what you were carrying was something that only I could fully reach. Not because others did not care, but because some places in the human heart are shaped in a way that only I fit into completely. And I fit. I am there. I have been there. And right now, I am filling that space with a kind of knowing that does not require you to explain yourself first. You are fully understood, exactly as you are, without anything needing to be simplified or translated. I already know, and I am already here.
My child, I want to speak to you about trust, because this season has likely tested yours in ways that earlier and easier times did not require, and I honor the honesty of that. There may have been moments when you asked why, when you looked at what you were walking through and quietly wondered whether what you believed about me was fully true, whether I was as near as you had hoped, whether my care was as personal as you had been taught. These are honest questions from a real heart in a real difficulty, and I do not turn away from honest questions. I want you to hear this clearly. Asking why is not a failure of faith. Wondering is not the same as walking away. Bringing your confusion to me is not irreverence. It is intimacy. It is the voice of someone who has not yet walked away and still believes that speaking to me is worth the effort. That is not weak faith. That is faith that has decided to stay, even when staying was not the easiest choice. I honored every moment you stayed, every prayer said through uncertainty, every act of trust offered while the feeling of certainty was not fully present. Those moments cost you something real, and nothing real that is offered to me is ever wasted. It all returned to you in some form. It is still returning, even in ways you will not fully recognize until later. Trust does not require perfect certainty. It only requires the decision to keep bringing what you have to the one who can be trusted with all of it. You have done that. Keep doing it, and watch what continues to unfold. I want to speak now about joy, because I know that one of the quiet losses of a long and heavy season is the slow fading of ease, the natural lightness that exists when things are flowing simply. Joy does not always disappear dramatically. Sometimes it simply thins out over time, becomes less accessible, requires more effort to locate. And I know that some of you listening right now have not felt fully joyful for a while. Not broken, not hopeless, but not light either. Moving through days with competence and even meaning, but missing something that used to come more naturally. The easy laughter, the simple pleasure in small things, the morning that felt like a gift rather than a requirement. I am speaking to that absence today, not with guilt about its presence, not with instruction to simply choose to feel differently, but with the genuine restoration of something I designed in you from the beginning. Joy was never meant to be a luxury available only in easy seasons. It was placed inside you as a foundation, not as a decoration when things go well, but as a deep current that can move even when surface conditions are rough. That current is still there. It has not been removed. It has been covered. And what covers it is beginning to be lifted. Not all at once, but noticeably, starting now. You may feel it first as a small lightning, a moment where something strikes you as genuinely amusing, a place where gratitude rises more easily than it did yesterday, a space in the day where the weight does not feel as complete as before. These are not small things. They are the returning current, and it will grow stronger. My child, I want to speak to what is coming, not to create expectation that leads to disappointment if timing moves differently than expected, but to give your heart something real to carry forward, a direction, an orientation, a reason for the next step that goes beyond simply enduring. What is coming into your life is not a continuation of pressing and heaviness.
What is coming is the fruit of what has been grown through this season. And fruit does not appear while the seed is still underground. It appears after the hidden growing, after the unseen development, after the long quiet work beneath the surface finishes its necessary work. You are closer to after than you have been at any point in this season. The underground work is not beginning, it is completing. And what is ready to emerge is not small. It is proportional to the depth of what you have walked through, because that is how growth works. Deep roots produce visible results that cannot be explained only by what appears on the surface. People will see what grows in your life after this season, and they will not fully understand where it came from, because much of what produced it happened below ground, in the quiet, in the hard, in the unseen, in the prayers said through difficulty, in the trust maintained through uncertainty, in the mornings that required more than they gave, but which you chose to walk through anyway. The coming harvest is real, and you are standing close enough to it now that I needed to tell you, so that you do not quit before the fullness arrives. Stay, it is closer than fear has been willing to admit.
I want to close this time together with something I need you to hold on to, not just today, but in the days that follow, especially on the days when what I have spoken here feels far away, when the weight returns, when the questions return, when fear tries to convince you that this moment meant nothing lasting. I spoke today, and what I speak does not evaporate when the feeling of it fades. My word does not depend on your emotion to remain true. What has been released into you today is working, even in the moments when you cannot feel it working, even on the days when you wake up heavy again, even on the evenings when the questions return. What has been planted does not uproot simply because the weather changes. On those days, come back to this, not necessarily to these exact words, but to the reality underneath them, to the knowledge that you were seen, specifically, completely, that you were spoken to with precision, that what was released into you was real and was not conditional on how long the feeling stayed vivid. You are held by something that does not shift, by someone who does not grow tired of you, who does not run low on what you need, who does not calculate the number of times you have returned in need and decide that the limit has been reached. There is no limit. There is no ceiling on my willingness toward you. Come back as many times as you need. Each time I will be exactly here, with exactly this, full, present, without frustration, without distance, exactly as I am right now. My child, before you move from this moment, I need you to receive one final truth, not as a closing statement, but as something to carry into everything that follows. You are not ordinary to me. I know that the world has ways of making people feel like one of many, like an undistinguished face in a vast and indifferent crowd, like a number inside a system too large to notice the specific. But that is not how I hold you. I hold you by name, by the exact specific reality of who you are, by the particular shape of your heart and the particular sound of your voice and the particular weight of what you carry. I do not love you in categories.
I love you specifically, the way only a creator can love what they have made with intention and care. And what I made when I made you was not accidental, was not incomplete, was not a rough draft, was a fully chosen expression of something I wanted to exist in the world. You, specifically you, were chosen before this season began, before the difficulty arrived, before the weight gathered, before any of the questions that have arisen found their way into your heart. You were chosen, and you remain chosen, and nothing that has pressed against you has changed that by even the smallest measure. So go forward from this moment knowing you are held, not loosely, not conditionally, but completely. Go forward knowing that my voice spoke specifically into your life today, and that what was spoken is already at work in places you will begin to notice soon. You are loved, you are held, you are mine, and that is enough to carry you through everything still ahead.